Hi, this is John Linneball from John Linneball Tutoring, and this is AP US History Video 41, The South, Slavery, and Sectionalism. If you like this video, don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe, and why not check out my site at testpreparation.locals.com. It contains much of the same content as this YouTube channel, and it doesn't have ads. All right, let's go. The Southern exception. In the antebellum period, that is the 1800s before the Civil War, the South remained politically, economically, and culturally unique. The South developed a separate cultural identity and depended heavily on exports. For example, by 1850, the South grew half the world's cotton, and by 1860, it was 3/4 of the world's cotton. Of course, the North also profited from cotton exports, for example, shipping out of cities such as New York City, as well as products made from cotton, such as products made in New England textile mills. So the North also profited from the cotton trade. Slavery became popular in the South just as it was becoming unpopular in the rest of the world. So King Cotton, of course, the South's major export, major crop, definitely demanded slavery because it was a very, very labor-intensive crop. The cotton gin, raising the cotton, picking the cotton from the field, etc. Anyway, for example, Great Britain banned the slave trade in 1807, and Denmark was the first country to ban the slave trade in 1792. The U.S. followed suit in 1808, banning the international slave trade. So the southern states could keep the slaves they already had and the children of those slaves. So there was still a source of slaves, just reproduction among the slaves. But they couldn't import new slaves, or at least not legally. Northern states made any slavery illegal in the North. While Northerners and even some white Southerners opposed slavery, the slavery-driven cotton industry and other slavery-supported industries were major profit sources for the antebellum U.S. economy. So cheap labor equaled low prices, less competition, and high profits. And if you want to see about the abolition of slavery in Denmark, you can go to this website here, and I'll also have that in the description below. Southern culture detailed in Alexis de Tocqueville's. If I pronounced it wrong, I apologize in advance. But anyway, Democracy in America. Alexis de Tocqueville in Democracy in America, 1831, wrote that slavery was the main reason the South was different from the rest of the United States. Slavery grew rapidly in the decades before the Civil War because the cotton gin made it cheaper to produce cotton, but demanded cheap labor to use the cotton gin efficiently. Cheap cotton, again, meant increased demand for cotton, which meant more needs for slaves. So it's kind of a vicious cycle, or at least it's a self-perpetuating cycle. More slaves means cheap cotton increases demand, means there's more need for slaves. In 1790, there were approximately 700,000 slaves in the South. 1830, 2 million, and by 1860, 4 million. That's a lot of people. And Mississippi and South Carolina were actually majority African American. In the North, only 1 in 76 people was actually African American. Slavery influenced Southern culture. The sheer number of African-descended slaves in the South meant that African American culture influenced speech, food, music, etc. So since whites were a minority in some southern states and slavery was hard to justify anywhere, most white Southerners adopt a white supremacist viewpoint. That was kind of obvious when you think there was a need for justification along with fear, hatred, etc. So the white supremacist viewpoint led to virulent, that means really deadly, sickening racism among Southern whites. So you can think of the one-drop rule. If you had 1 drop of African blood, you were black, even if you looked completely white. In some states, I believe Louisiana had those laws up till very, very recently, or maybe still does. Anyway, there's plenty of racism among Northern whites, but it wasn't quite as economically necessary to justify it. There's a psychological phenomenon called cognitive dissonance. Well, if slavery is wrong, why am I supporting it? A lot of people aren't going to say, well, because it's economically necessary, so they're going to come up with a justification that makes them feel better. It resolves the dissonance. So, you say, oh, well, it's because blacks are actually inferior and they need to be taken care of, etc. So that's why racism became very, very popular in the South. Even though there's plenty of racism in the North, it wasn't quite the same. All right. The feds can't stop sectionalism. The federal government wished to encourage economic links between the regions and states So they weren't really in favor of sectionalism because they didn't want the country to fall apart. They wanted a stronger union because stronger union means more need for a federal government. Makes sense, right? They want to increase their own power. So this worked really well between the North and the Midwest in the market economy. Somebody, New York City might want to ship things inland to Illinois. Somebody, people in Iowa might want to ship corn back to New York, things like that. But not for the South for the reasons we just discussed. Slavery, a lot of just cultural differences, economic differences. So the South was really its own thing. The South became more isolated, and in hindsight, it's easy to see that's the reason the Civil War took place, as the South became less and less related to the rest of the country and kind of alienated from it. They started to think, why do we really need to be part of this country? We don't seem to be getting a very good deal out of this. Henry Clay's American system. So this was also very pro-federalist. After the War of 1812, nationalism surged because the U.S. had just won a war. Henry Clay observed that U.S. troops had serious problems moving men and materials because of a lack of transportation infrastructure. So Clay's idea was to support U.S. industry through tariffs on imported goods. That would make it cheaper to, in quotes, buy American, that is, buy things that were made in the United States rather than importing goods from other countries that would fulfill the same needs. So rather than importing, let's say, tea sets, saucers and cups and teapots from England, if you can make an American-made saucer, cup, and teapot, and there's a tariff that would make the English-made teapot, tea set, whatever, more expensive, then fine. People would say, oh, I'll just buy this nice American-made one because it's just as good and it costs less after the taxes. So, anyway, they would have tariffs, and then the tariff money would be used to finance internal improvements, that is, infrastructure like roads, canals, bridges, etc. So then the wagon with the nice tea sets on it could take it to the market, and it would be a nice smooth road so they wouldn't bump around and get broken in transit, etc. Okay, so Clay also proposed a second Bank of the United States to regulate the economy. Congress authorized both a second Bank of the United States and tariffs in 1816. Growing isolation... I'll try that again. Growing isolation of the South. Even the internal improvements isolated the South. That is, the roads, etc., tended to connect the North and the Midwest, but not the South. The North and the Midwest were connected culturally. That is, a lot of people moved from the North to the Midwest, or vice versa, much more often than from the North or Midwest to the South, or vice versa. As such, people in the North were much more likely to have relatives and friends in the Midwest than in the South, and obviously vice versa. Cultural isolation added to the economic and upcoming political isolation of the South. Did you find this video useful? If you did, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Neither action costs you anything. You'll be alerted about my new videos. Why? Well, it's simple. YouTube doesn't let me share any ad revenue unless I have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours. That's 240,000 minutes of view time in a year. While many people are watching these, I don't have 4,000 hours of watch time. I don't quite have 1,000 subscribers at this time, but I'm getting very close. So if you subscribe to my channel, you could put me over the hump here. The ad money will help me make more videos. If you saw an ad during this video, please know I didn't get any of the ad money, and I won't until I have the subscribers and view time that YouTube demands that I've just mentioned. For the same reasons, you're not only welcome but encouraged to share links to this video, put it in playlists, etc. Do anything you want with it, just please give me credit for it, link to these videos, etc., link to my channel. You know what I mean? I gladly read and respond to constructive criticisms or suggestions for new videos. I also am not going to respond to trolls or just obvious commercial spam, so please don't bother. And I reserve the right to delete comments such as troll posts or spam because it's my channel. You can hire me for tutoring. If you are in the San Francisco Bay Area, you can actually hire me for in-person tutoring. I do sometimes travel to other places, so we might even be able to do some in-person tutoring if you live somewhere other than the San Francisco Bay Area. Anyway, on that note, thanks for watching, and I just have one more thing if you want to continue watching this. Here's my contact information. Facebook, it's facebook.com/Linneball Tutoring, all one word. Instagram, it's instagram.com/john.linneball.tutoring. My cell phone number is 415-623-4251. You can text me if you want. Email, john@johnlinneball.com. And my website is johnlinneball.com or johnlinneballtutoring.com. They both take you to the same website. Testpreparation.locals.com is my locals.com page. And I'm also on LBRY TV, so kind of library.tv with some vowels missing and some other things. Anyway, LBRY.tv at John Linneball Tutoring. And if you want to actually mail me some postal mail, you can do it at John Linneball Tutoring, 1859 Powell Street, number 109, San Francisco, California, 94133. All right, I lied to you before. I have one more thing after this to talk about. Note, this is not a substitute for your classes, text, etc. So this video is based on Barron's AP United States History Review book. This one came from the 4th edition rather than the 5th edition, but anyway. Any other sources listed in the video description and my general knowledge of U.S. history. While this should help you do well on the AP US History exam, I cannot be responsible for what your teacher thinks is important and asks you about on his or her own tests, homework, etc. Please read your class texts and please pay attention to what your teacher says in class. On that note, I'm out of here. Hope you are having a good day, evening, whatever time of day it is there. Thanks. Bye.